saw a guy on stage
Oh my God, okay.
holding an opossum and telling possum stories. And he was holding the opossum like this. You know. They're kind of scary. They're bigger than this, and they can bite. Of course, the thing that opossums are most famous for is their incredible trick of when they feel themselves in danger, playing dead with incredible verisimilitude. That is, their heart practically stops and the signs of life disappear. They really look dead. Anyway, I started telling the story that I heard this guy telling right away. I thought it was a great story and it really stuck in my head. And eventually I got around to writing it in verse. In Louisiana, that's the first place that French people ever saw opossums. The Acadians who moved down to Louisiana and came to be called the Cajuns. And so they looked at it, this animal living in the forest, and they gave it a name. They called it the rat de bois, the rat of the woods.
It was a Cajun story.
Yes, it's a Cajun story. Now, of course, there is a word in French for opossum. It's called l'opossum, which is, rat de bois is much more colorful. So, and the story takes place on the bayou. There's, I heard a wonderful definition of a bayou in good Cajun. A bayou, that's a river that runs so slow that if it rains over there, the water goes this way. But if it rains over there, the water just turns around and goes right back. Okay, so this is the story of the rat de bois, and it's about the time he really saved his skin when he ran into a fellow called Zachary. Zachary stood on the edge of the bayou, fishing for minnows and crawdads to eat, but he didn't catch nothing to eat all that day. That night he walked home to the swamp on tired feet. When he walked in his cabin way off in the swampland, he called to his wife, who was named Emily. And he said to her, "What we got cooking for dinner?" She said, "We ain't got nothing much, Zachary. You know we got left only one little tater, and I tried to make us a gumbo with that, but you can't get a meal out of just one small tater. I might as well try and cook up a straw hat." "Well, why you don't kill us a chicken for dinner?" Zachary said as he sat at his place. "And make chicken gumbo, you know that's my favorite." But Emily said, "That would be a disgrace. We got just one chicken out there in the yard, what lays us an egg most every day. It would be a great sin to kill such a chicken with no egg for breakfast. Now what would you say?" "Well, I guess you are right," he said as he sat there. "I'll try out that tater. I hope it's all right." But when he lifted his fork to his mouth for a taste, he knew right away he'd be hungry all night. He was pushing that tater around with his fork, and Zachary shut his eyes, trying real hard to pretend that the gumbo was something delicious. When just then he heard a noise out in the yard. Wah, wah! That chicken was squawking and making a racket. Zachary ran to the window to look. And old Rat de Bois have grabbed hold of his chicken and was gripping that bird in its teeth like a hook. Zachary was mad. He grabbed a big stick and he ran to the door and opened it wide. But that old Rat de Bois, it fell dead at his feet, even before Zachary stepped outside. So he lifted that Rat de Bois by the tail. "We got meat for dinner tonight, Emily!" Zachary called with a grin and then said, "Rat de Bois stew is real good. Wait and see." And then he slapped that old Rat de Bois down on the table, and he took a long knife to cut open the hide, and he made a long slit in that Rat de Bois belly, and he peeled off the skin to get what was inside. And then he said, "Emily, go and heat up the oven. Maybe you better put on some more wood. Put some grease in the pan and throw in that tater. Take this Rat de Bois now and cook it real good." Me, I'm taking the skin from this critter on down the bayou to old Hebert's store. Maybe he'll trade me a bottle of wine. And if I get lucky, I get something more. So Emily did just what Zachary said. And he got his pirogue and he headed downstream. And he arrived at the store in the dark of the night. And his knocking woke Hebert right out of a dream. Old Hebert stuck his head out of the window. He held up a candle and said, "Who's that there?" Zachary said, "Why, it's me, Zachary, and this rat de bois skin I got here's pretty fair." Old Hebert said, "It's too dark. I can't see it. Better bring it inside into the light." So they took in that skin, and then with some nails, hung it up on the wall and stretched it real tight. Old Hebert, he studied that rat de bois skin. "You know, Zachary," the old man, he said, "that's the very best skin that I seen in some time. I can give you a bottle of wine and some bread." As he headed home, Zachary was so proud to have gotten a rat de bois skin that's so fine that old Mr. Hebert had traded him for it a whole loaf of bread along with the wine. He was sure feeling good when at last he got home. He put down the wine and the bread at his place. Then he opened that wine, and it really smelled good. Zachary just sat with a grin on his face. "Well, Emily," he called to his wife, "is my rat de bois cooked? Is it ready to eat?" She said, "Go and look in the oven yourself. Don't be so lazy. Go check your own meat." So Zachary got up and walked to the oven. And getting down on his knees, he opened the door. The sweet smell from inside, it was driving him crazy. When he opened the oven, he sniffed it some more. But would you believe it? What Zachary saw was the rat de bois sitting there, grinning a grin. He took one look at Zachary, then finished eating that one tater gumbo, then wiped off his chin. It licked up all the grease in the pan, and then it jumped over poor Zachary's head. It knocked over Zachary's bottle of wine and jumped out the window with Zachary's bread. The rat de bois had the bread under one arm. It grabbed up the chicken with its other hand, and off it ran into the dark of the woods. Zachary was mad. Oh, he hardly could stand. Zachary stood and peered into the darkness. And he said, as he raised his fist over his head, "Someday I will get you for spilling my wine and stealing my chicken and also my bread." But that rat de bois, well, he had the last laugh. Later that night, he sneaked out of the woods and he slipped in the window of old Hebert's store and quietly crept through the piles of dry goods. And he looked round the store till he found a hammer. And then he found his skin nailed up on the wall, and using the hammer, he pulled out them nails. When the last one was pulled, his skin, it did fall. And he picked up that skin and he carried it over to where Mr. Hebert kept needle and thread. And putting that skin back on just like a coat, he sewed himself up from his feet to his head. Oh, quick as a wink, he was gone out the window. With his skin sewed back on, he was now good as new. He ran into the woods to eat that bread and chicken. And Zachary never got rat de bois stew. And that's the story of the rat de bois.